Sometimes life hits you like a truck, and sometimes there's an actual truck. I was in a huge traumatic accident. I was hit by a semi that was going 65 miles an hour when it hit me, and I wasn't in a vehicle. As you can imagine, that creates a tremendous amount of damage. I had, of course, complete total kidney failure at the time. I was on 24-hour dialysis. That ended up getting slowly over time reduced down, and I was, of course, transferred back to hospitals in my home area of Seattle. And I had recovered enough through surgeries to go to the University of Washington, start the process of getting evaluated for a transplant, because we had come to the heartbreaking conclusion that my kidneys weren't coming back. Went to the University of Washington, jumped through all of those hoops, and they said, yes, we'll approve you for a transplant. That was great. And my brother, who is awesome, my mountain climbing partner, and 12 years younger, which is great, convenient, upgrade. He said that he wanted to be my kidney donor.
And for me, that was a very obvious obligation that came from within me, not somebody else telling me I needed to. It was simply a compulsion. I couldn't imagine anybody else rolling into the operating room with my sister who wasn't me.
He jumped through all the hoops, all the months of testing of that. Everything looked fabulous. University of Washington is, yes, he's a great match. Awesome, everything looks perfect. Except it turns out that he's less than 1% of the donor population because he has multiple renal arteries, 3 to his left kidney and 4 to his right kidney.
Which makes me a little bit of a rarity and a more complicated transplant donor. And as it turns out, still a good match, which is great. We just had to find somebody who could handle the complexity.
The University of Washington ended up taking a pass. The risk exceeded their willingness to proceed. So we went to that well-known healthcare research tool known as Google and found the University of Maryland and found Dr. Bartlett's discussions of doing multiple renal artery transplants. My brother had called and then said, hey, Elisa, you need to call the transplant coordinator. I called and it was phenomenal. I called on a Monday morning and a week later we were scheduling surgery.
When we rolled back and the surgery began on Elisa first, I had a bit of a waiting game until they eventually said, okay, we're gonna roll you back in next. And so we went in, and I remember very clearly as the anesthesiologist began saying goodnight, and when I awoke, it was just a question of, okay, where do we stand?
And it worked. It was great. You know, I was taken into surgery. It was a long surgery. I think it was about 6 hours. Woke up in post-op, looked at my husband. First words out of my mouth, do I have a kidney? And he said, yes, yes you do. You have a kidney.
And I was delighted actually by the news that it had gone well and that my operation went well, and so did Elisa's. And it was incredibly gratifying to think, after being rejected initially at another institute, being accepted here, all of the workup, that we had finally made it. And it felt at that point that we had really achieved something great and that Elisa's life was about to take a turn for the better. The first time I saw her, I snuck into her room and left a note in my very woozy state. It said, Matt was here, and now I'm here, with this little arrow pointing at her kidney, which in my drugged up state seemed funny at 2 o'clock in the morning on some walk around the hospital.
What comes to mind when I think of the University of Maryland is heroic, really. It came to our rescue at a time when I felt hopeless and desperate. And I say that, it sounds really dramatic when I say that, except it was. Had I not had that option that University of Maryland brought to us, the whole rest of my life would be drastically different.
And I don't really think about it very much. I'm mindful of basic issues that can affect my one remaining kidney, and so I follow the guidance I was given, but I don't eat anything differently. I don't live my life any differently. And it's something that I think doesn't impact me at all now. I healed up great and had a wonderful experience. My follow-up treatment was fine, and I couldn't be happier with the outcome. University of Maryland did a phenomenal job taking care of us.
My brother and I we were just talking about this. When we think about Baltimore, and people would think, okay, you're coming for a transplant all the way across the country. This is this horrible, painful, sad occasion. We had a blast. We laughed. We had so much fun coming to get a kidney transplant. And you have to do that. When life hits you like a truck, you've got to keep a sense of humor. I'm doing great. My brother's kidney is doing great. He's doing great. And it's changed my life, extended my life tremendously. I'm not sick